Greetings and welcome to another MLS Matchweek preview, Week 11 edition. And this week, just like previous week, we have a full slate of MLS action, which means that there is going to be 12 games to preview, and there is going to be one tomorrow on Friday, I believe 9 on Saturday, and 2 on Sunday. And that being said, speaking of the Friday game, let's actually start with the Friday game, which is between the Whitecaps and the Portland Timbers. So the Whitecaps, they're coming into this game with a record of 2-3-5, while the Timbers are coming into this game with a 3-1-5 record. The Whitecaps, of course, won 3-2 against Colorado away for their second victory of this season, while the Timbers have now won 3 straight road games, and they are looking like one of the hottest teams in the league right now. In terms of injury and suspension for Vancouver, Badesmo, Kimiri, Norman Jr., and Jordy Reyna will be out for this game. For Portland, Ivic, McIntosh are going to be out for this game. Both of them are goalkeeper for the Timbers. And in terms of the guys that is going to be questionable, it's going to be Lorea. And in terms of suspended guy, I put Brian Fernandez on that list, and I put a question mark because, as I mentioned before, he actually have a 2-game suspension from Liga MX, but the question is, once he come to MLS, and I'm assuming he's probably going to be playing in this game, do they enforce that 2-game suspension now that he's in MLS, or they just kind of wipe that away and that he can be good to go with the Portland Timbers? So that'll be very interesting to see. If MLS decide to wipe that 2-game suspension that he, of course, got in Liga MX, most likely he will be making his debut in this game because he already are in Portland right now, and that the Portland Timbers Twitter page even took photo of him being at the airport and that he should be ready to play for this team. But in terms of this match, this is definitely an interesting kind of match because you have one team that is the Vancouver Whitecaps that has started to figure things out. They've been doing much better in the last couple of games against a team that also are started to figure things out, except they're doing it on the road and look like right now, I think no matter what they do for the rest of this 12-game road trip, which they're getting close to the end of this 12-game road trip. I believe this is going to, after this one, they have 2 more road games left before they, of course, go back to Providence Park in June to play LAFC in their opening match or opening home match of their 2019 season. So the end is near for the Timbers, and no matter what they do in these last 3 games, you gotta say this has definitely been an impressive road trip. And it's so unexpected too, because for the first 6 game of the road trip, it looked like doom and gloom for the Portland Timbers. It looked like things were gonna go very badly in this 12-game road trip. But now, 3 straight win on the road, and all of a sudden, this team is now talking about maybe they can even climb all the way up near the top of the MLS table in terms of competing for those top spots. But next up is Montreal. So they play against FC Cincinnati. FC Cincinnati, they are 2-2-7, while for Montreal, their record is 6-2-4. FC Cincinnati, of course, now have an interim manager after Alan Koch, of course, was fired on Wednesday, and their interim manager is going to be Yoann Demet. I think that's how you pronounce it. But what's interesting about him is that he's only 29 years old. He's pretty much like a Julian Nagelsmann of MLS, of how he's only 29 years old, and most guys in this league is older than him, and that I've heard that he's also become the youngest coach in MLS to coach a team. Now, obviously, he's an interim manager, so we don't know if he's going to get the full-time job, but it'll be interesting to see how he does with FC Cincinnati, and obviously he has a lot on his hands and certainly have a lot to fix with this team, because this team is just low incompetent. I mean, this team just cannot score right now. They have now gone 5 games without a goal. They've gone over 500 minutes without a goal, and it's definitely going to be a tough task for him to just motivate the team and just score a goal finally. They of course played against Montreal, and unfortunately they are playing against Montreal, and Montreal is one of those teams that do not concede goals. Montreal of course won 2-1 against the Red Bulls away. In terms of injuries and suspension for FC Cincinnati, McLaughlin is out, and in terms of questionable, Greg Garza is actually going to be questionable in this game, and I don't think Greg Garza has been featured for FC Cincinnati because he had that injury. Oh wait, no, he actually have featured, but then he of course re-injured himself, or I don't know. I think he hasn't featured for FC Cincinnati right now, and that in this game, there's a chance that he could potentially feature with FC Cincinnati for the first time after, of course, last year he won the MLS Cup with Atlanta United. And Bone obviously is another guy that is going to be questionable in this game. For Montreal, unfortunately, Piatti is still out for this game. There's no updates of the fact that he is anywhere close to being back in the starting 11. And Baisha is the other guy that is going to be out for this game. But yeah, for FC Cincinnati, as I said about the Rapids last week, whenever there is a new manager that comes into the team, it definitely gives a little bit more confidence to the players, because the players, they definitely want to prove to their interim manager that they are worthy of staying with the club, and I'm pretty sure that they're going to try their best to finally score a goal, because like I said, against Montreal, a team that is known to clean sheet like it's nothing, I have a feeling that this could potentially be another game where they might not score a goal, but we shall see. Next up is going to be Dallas. So they are playing against the Red Bulls, who the Red Bulls are 3-2-5, while Dallas is 5-2-3. Dallas, of course, lost El Capitan to Houston 2-1 away, while the Red Bulls, of course, lost to Montreal 2-1 at home, as I mentioned just a second ago. In terms of injuries and suspension for Dallas, Coman, Atuhini, Brenson, and most importantly, Paxton Palmico is still out in this game. So obviously this is going to be another game that Dallas will not have Palmico, and it's clear that Dallas in these last couple of games, they have really struggled in terms of going forward, and the reason why they have been struggling so much in terms of going forward is because Paxton Palmico is not in that starting 11. I mean, you can see how much they miss his creativity, and just it feels like he is probably one of the most important player that can help this attack that Dallas has in place, and that now they don't have him anymore. You can see how much they have struggled in terms of creating chances going forward. Now for the Red Bulls, of course, Valet is going to be out for this game. He's done for the season. BWP, of course, is questionable in this game. I believe he was questionable in the last game too. So in the last game he didn't play, so most likely the Red Bulls might play BWP in this game. I mean, when you look at this game, this is a game between both teams that are kind of a little bit desperate to try to get a win. For Dallas, they need to start to figure things out, because lately it hasn't gone very well in terms of their form. And for the Red Bulls, just as you thought that they finally figured it out against the Galaxy, in the midweek, they dropped all 3 points against Montreal at home 2-1, and they were also up 1-0 in that game. So, this is a game that both teams are desperate to get all 3 points. I think Dallas might be the favorites in this because they've been pretty good at home. But having said that, Dallas, in terms of the attack, has really struggled in the last couple of games, and we'll see if the Red Bulls can capitalize on that. But moving on into the next match is going to be TFC. They are going to be playing against the Union, and this is definitely a game that is going to be something that you got to keep an eye on and probably consider the game of the week. Obviously, we do have a couple of game of the week on Sunday. That is usually where the marquee matchup is going to be, but I think this definitely gets a shout for the game of the week, because TFC, their record is 5-1-3, and they're playing against the Union, who is top of the Eastern Conference. And yes, that's not a joke, the Union is actually top of the Eastern Conference. I don't think a lot of people would have thought especially after how they start the first couple of games of the season, that they will be at top of the Eastern Conference by week 11. But their record is now 6-2-3. TFC, of course, lost to Atlanta in the midweek game away, while Philly, of course, won 6-1 against the Revs at home. In terms of injuries and suspension for TFC, Josie Altidore and Drew Moore is going to be questionable in this game. I don't know if TFC would decide to gamble in this game and put Altidore back in. I'm pretty sure that he won't be starting in this game. If anything, he probably might come off the bench. But it feels like they really need Altidore to be back on this team, with the way that when he's not with this team, you can see how much the TFC attack kind of struggle, and that it just seemed like when you get rid of Altidore and that Pozuelo and Altidore kind of connection, it just does not function at all in terms of that TFC attack. Now, for Philly, what's impressive about Philly is that they, I talked about how it's so impressive, the fact that they're first in the Eastern Conference, but they also had some big injuries in their team too. Andre Blake, of course, is still out for this game. He's going to be out for a while, at least after the Gold Cup, because I heard that Andre Blake, he is not going to be playing with Jamaica in the Gold Cup, which is a big blow to Jamaica's chances of winning the Gold Cup during the summer. Mark McKenzie is still out. Freeze is also out. Questionable in this game is going to be Fabian and Fontana. So let's see if Marco Fabian will be back in this team, and let's see if Fontana also would be back on this team. I don't think at this point where Philly is, I don't think they really need to put Fabian in this game. They're not like TFC, where I feel like they need to bring Altidore in this game, because without him, this TFC team just kind of doesn't function. Whereas for Philly, even without Fabian, they're actually doing pretty fine in the league so far. So they don't really need to force the issue. But we'll see. Since this is a big game between both of these teams are definitely looking for a win. And one big question I have with Philly, besides the fact that this is a big test for them, is can they get 3 points on the road? So far this season, they've been pretty good at home, which is where most of the wins have come from. But on the road, they have really struggled this season. And against TFC on the road, it is no easy task whatsoever. But yeah, moving on. In the next match is the Galaxy. So the Galaxy, they play against another team that is kind of on a resurgence, which is NYCFC. Their record, of course, is 3-6-1, while the Galaxy are 7-1-3. And the Galaxy, after that 6-game winning streak that they have now lost back-to-back games, while NYCFC are unbeaten in 6 games. And they are unbeaten ever since Domai Turan said that he is on the hot seat. In terms of injuries and suspension for the Galaxy, Perry Kitchen and Alessandrini is going to be out for this game, alongside with Jonathan Dos Santos, who of course suffered that leg injury back in that midweek game against Columbus. While questionable in this game is going to be Araujo for the Galaxy. While for NYCFC, there's 3 guys that is going to be questionable, and all 3 of these guys are very big piece that NYCFC want to have back. Alexandro Matrita, Sands, and Matarita is all questionable in this game, and there's no doubt that they want all 3 of these guys in this game against the Galaxy. Now, NYCFC, they have been red hot lately, and that they're playing against a Galaxy team that is kind of started to suffer a bit of a blip, although it's been kind of a blip that we have been seeing coming. Like, even near the end of the 6-game winning streak, you can see that there are some flaws to this Galaxy team, and that they would just heavily rely on Zlatan. And once Zlatan is not scoring for this Galaxy team, you can see how much they struggle on the attack. So we'll see if NYCFC can stop Zlatan in this game. I mean, so far, I think most teams have started to figure out how to stop Zlatan and just simply double team or even triple team Zlatan, because of the fact that Galaxy does not really have any other goal scorer besides Zlatan. Although the other interesting thing about the Galaxy is, will they bring Fabio Alvarez in this game, who of course is a guy that they just bought during the transfer deadline, and he was supposed to be kind of I wouldn't say a long-term replacement, but kind of like a short-term replacement for Alessandrini that is currently injured right now. So yeah, we'll see if he can give some kind of attacking juice to this Galaxy team. But other than that, this should be a very entertaining game. And I talked about how this could be a marquee kind of matchup. This one can also be it because NYCFC, they have been just so good these last couple of weeks. While the Galaxy, let's see if they can bounce back from suffering back-to-back losses after going unbeaten and winning 6 games in a row. But having said that, moving on into the next match. Speaking of LA, so the Galaxy hated rival LAFC is going to be playing against Columbus. So Columbus, they're playing another LA team this weekend. Of course, they beat the Galaxy 3-1 during that midweek game at home. While LAFC, of course, like the Galaxy, are started to hit a bit of a blip. They've only won 1 out of 4 games. And in terms of injury and suspension for Columbus, as I mentioned before, Valenzuela and Affo, both fullbacks for the Crew, is going to be out for this game. While for LAFC, Silva, Perez, and Guido will all be out for this game. For this game, it will be very interesting to see if LAFC can kind of get out of this blip. I kind of had a feeling that LAFC is due for a big game. Like, so far in these last couple of games, they have really struggled in terms of scoring goal, but not because of lack of trying. They just haven't been very clinical so far, and something tells me that all those chances that they created and all those missed opportunities that they have will eventually kind of pile up, and they have a chance to pile up against a Columbus team that, although they are very good in terms of defending, I expect LAFC to, finally kind of get out of this little slump right now, because Columbus, prior to that Galaxy win, they really struggle in terms of scoring goals. Now, the other interesting thing about Columbus is, will they put David Accam in this game? Accam did not play between them and the LA Galaxy in that midweek game, but it's kind of clear that the Crew really felt his presence and really got going for the first time in a long time in terms of their attack and scoring goals. So yeah, we'll see if Accam can bring some attacking force with that team, and hopefully for Columbus, that Galaxy game where they score 3 goals is not just one of those games where you occasionally see it with the Crew where they would score like 3 goals or even 4 goals in one game and then go a long period with just scoring like 2 and 1 goal, and that it's just kind of an outlier out there. So yeah, we shall see if that is the case. But that being said, let me now switch board and move on into the last 6 games of this MLS Matchweek number 11 Matchweek. But yeah, next up, it's the Quakes. So a couple of days ago, I said that this game is probably the most winnable road game that the Quakes will ever have in a long time. And it is still a winnable road game, but it kind of got a little bit tougher because of what happened today, where today we have our 3rd head coach that has been fired in the last 10 days. And this time, it's Brad Friedel that, of course, suffered the chopping block as he's been fired by the New England Revolution. Assistant head coach Mike Lapper will be his replacement and will be the interim head coach for the New England Revolution. And I think out of the 3 head coaches that's been fired in the last 2 days, Brad Friedel is probably the most deserved to be fired. I mean, he has been kind of like right near the top of the list as the manager that probably is going to be fired. And I think maybe in the beginning of the year, if you would have asked who most likely would get fired, most people would say it will be Brad Friedel, because the philosophy that he's trying to implement to this team clearly does not work whatsoever. And it's clear that when you look at the last couple of games where they gave up 18 goals in 4 games, and especially when you watched last night's game between the Chicago Fire versus New England, the player just didn't play for him. Like, they literally stopped playing after it was 3-0, and that it just felt like they were doing whatever it takes to get Brad Friedel fired. And I don't usually like players do that. Obviously, that's going to drive a lot of fans crazy, but in some sense, I guess the fans can accept the fact that they lose that badly, because they've been wanting Friedel out for a very long time. There's probably, for the last 2 seasons, besides maybe Michael Starhay, there has been probably the most incompetent coach in the league, none other than Brad Friedel. And you knew that after that 5-0 loss against Chicago, you knew that it's going to be a matter of time. Either it's today or next week where they're going to fire him. I would be very shocked the fact that New England does not fire him in the next couple of weeks. Well, they finally did it in this game, and obviously now with them getting a new interim head coach, as I said, the fact that the Quakes, this is a winnable game for them, and that it does get a little bit harder because of the fact that now Brett Friedel is no longer coaching this team, and that he's now the interim head coach. And I kind of said something similar to Cincinnati, where they fired their coach this week. Now they are playing under their interim head coach, and that now players should be kind of more up for games because knowing now their old coach is gone and the coach that they don't want to play for is gone, there's going to be some more motivation that they can get the job done. However, having said that, for the Quakes, even last season, the 4-win Quakes got a point out of New England, and I believe that's only one of the 2 games that we were able to... Well, actually, no. That was one of the 4 games that we were able to get a result. The other 2 games was Minnesota and Dallas, which we got. And then the other one was RSL on the road, where we got a draw. So even a 4-win Quakes team can get a point out of New England. And I know the Quakes, historically, they have not been good on the road the last couple of seasons, especially when they go into the East Coast. But the thing is, it's New England. Everybody has been able to beat New England. New England has been just as bad of a train wreck as what you would say the Colorado Rapids is right now. I mean, they're basically like the punching bag of the league right now. And knowing the Quakes have been in such a good form in the last couple of weeks, I would expect this to be a win. Now, that being said, I said the same thing about FC Cincinnati, and that game, although we did win that game 1-0, and it was a hard-fought victory, and yes, the last 40 minutes, we were down a man, so that's why we were just kind of trying to hang on. But we didn't perform that good against FC Cincinnati, and I thought it was kind of a bit of an unconvincing win, especially when you look at it in the first half, where yes, Lima did score that spectacular goal, but other than that, there was no attacking threat whatsoever. And that, in these last couple of games, the Quakes only scoring 1 goal against FC Cincinnati, and in Dallas, they didn't score any goals. I'm not going to say I'm concerned. The attack the goals are started to dry out by the Quakes, but if they do not score a goal or 2 against New England, yeah, something tells me I am a little bit concerned about their attack again. But that being said, I want to try to keep a bit optimistic, and I hope that the Quakes will get all 3 points in this game. And I'm not going to say it's 3 points or bust for the Quakes because, as I mentioned before, whenever the Quakes are on the road, I would never say that they need to get 3 points or more, unless if they really need to get 3 points or more, or else they're going to miss the playoffs. That's the only time that happened, because the Quakes on the road, I don't trust them whatsoever. Even against a weak team, I don't trust them whatsoever. But that being said, let's move on in the next game. And it's between Chicago, who, of course, as I mentioned, destroyed New England in the last match 5-0 and virtually got Brett Friedel fired from the head coaching post. They will, of course, play against Minnesota. The record is pretty similar. Chicago 3-4-4, while Minnesota is 4-3-3. Minnesota, of course, drew 1-1 to Seattle at home. In terms of injury and suspension, Reynolds, Edwards, Marcelo are all out for the Chicago Fire. Questionable is going to be CJ Sapon, and obviously, I think for the Fire, they would definitely want CJ Sapon to be back in the team because it adds another element in their attack. Not that their attack has already been pretty stacked so far, but bring Sapon, that has been in pretty good form this year with the Fire, will definitely be a bonus in this game. Well, for Minnesota, the only player that is not going to be available in this game, or questionable in this game, is going to be Gasper. And for Chicago, let's see if they can continue what they did against New England, where they score 5 goals against them. But knowing this season, they probably won't, because they've been just so inconsistent this year, and there's been times where the attack has been doing well, and then there's times where it just didn't click whatsoever. And they're playing against a Minnesota team that, oddly, they have definitely been better in terms of defending. But now, the big issue for Minnesota is scoring goals. Like, they have not scored a lot of goals in these last couple of games, and you would think that for the last 2 seasons, ever since they come into the league, it's always been the defense that's been an issue. Not really is the case for Minnesota. It's kind of started to be on the opposite side, but Otherwise, this is still going to be a very interesting game. Let's see if the Chicago Fire can make it 2 in a row, or let's see if Minnesota, which this year they have been so much better on the road, and this is definitely a winnable game for them. Let's see if they can get all 3 points in this game. But moving on, in the next match is the Rocky Mountain Cup, or also known as the Rocky Mountain Derby. Although I would say that this is probably, if there is a derby that really, like, it feels very irrelevant and nobody really talks about, yeah, this is going to be the one, because you got a team that is winless, and that is the only team that has not got a win, and pretty much a dumpster fire of a team that is the Colorado Rapids, against an RSL team that isn't really anything better. You know, they're kind of below mediocrity in terms of their state of their season. And then, of course, they lost to Portland 2-1 at home in the last game. In terms of injuries and suspension, Colorado, Courtney Ford is the only guy that is going to be out for this game. And as for RSL, they have a bunch of injuries. So maybe that's one thing that they can kind of use as an excuse of why their season hasn't gone so well so far. Allen, Beltran are all out for this game. There are a couple of guys that is doubtful. Holt and Louise is going to be doubtful in this game, and questionable in this game is going to be Nick Raimondo, who is their starting goalkeeper. And yeah, I mean, this you know, whenever there's a derby, I always want to pay attention to, but this is going to be a very hard one to try to get my attention, because on one hand, you have a Colorado team that, like I said, they are a train wreck right now, and right now it seems like most of their players, not only they don't want to be there, but some of them have already jumped ship. Benny Feilhaber, who, you know, he's only been with the Rapids for 2 months, he's going back to Sporting KC, and, you know, it's clear that the Rapids right now, things have definitely not gone right for them. But the good news is they did bring some reinforcement heading into the transfer deadline. They got Jonathan Lewis, who can boost up their attack. They also got Lawless Abubakar in that defense, and also one of SKC defender too. So hopefully that can at least help stabilize their defense a little bit. But otherwise, you know, they're facing against an RSL team that, you know, RSL, they have never been good on the road. Although, whenever they play against Colorado on the road, they tend to do much better. You know, the last time RSL played Colorado on the road, it was a 6-0 thrashing that RSL gave to Colorado. And Colorado actually had 9 men. They finished the game with 9 men and had only 2 men sent off in that game. So, yeah, that was a crazy kind of game. I don't know if it's going to be like that in this one, but we'll see. We'll see how this game is going to go. It's just, it doesn't seem like it's a derby game with the way how both team has been. It just does not have that hype as you would see maybe in some other big derby like the Cascadia Derby or El Tráfico. But that being said, moving on into the next game is going to be the Seattle Sounders taking on the Houston Dynamo, and this is definitely a very interesting and I would say maybe a more key matchup, because for Houston, I really think that this is probably their biggest test this season, as they have a record of 6-1-1, but they're going to be going on the road where they have not been doing very well for the past couple of seasons against a Sounders team that is very good at home. Seattle, of course, drew 1-1 to Minnesota away, while Houston, of course, won El Capitan against FC Dallas as they beat them 2-1 at home. For Seattle, Swenson is the only guy that is out. So, despite the fact that I've been talking about how the Sounders are kind of banged up a little bit, not really. I mean, Swenson is the only guy that is out for this game, although Gustav Swenson, I think he's a very big piece in terms of that midfield, and obviously when you do not have him on the midfield, you can see how it is kind of a little bit disjointed in that Sounders midfield without him. Nuhu, of course, will be questionable in this game, which means that Raul Ruiz-Diaz will be available for this game. And man, they really miss Raul Ruiz-Diaz. I mean, Jordan Morris, after a spectacular start to the season where I'm already hands down saying he's the comeback player of the year, and he still could be the comeback player of the year, but man, he has really dipped in forming. Have been kind of struggled to score some goals lately, and that they really need Ruiz-Diaz back, which thankfully they are able to get him back in this game. As for Houston, Bird Beasler are guys that is going to be out, and so is Pena and Haston that is going to be out for Houston in this game. And like I said, for Houston, this is a big test for them. So far this season, they have definitely proved to me that they are a team to be recognized and they are a team that should be taken seriously. But now I think if they want to show people that they need to be taken seriously and that this could be a serious contender in the Western Conference, they need to get a result against the Seattle team, which, this Seattle team has not done very well in the last couple of games. So, yeah, this is a good opportunity for the Dynamo to get something out of it and send a message to the league that, hey, we are real and we are part of the top elite kind of group right now in MLS this season. But moving on into the next match is going to be Atlanta. They are going to be playing against Orlando City, and this is definitely a marquee matchup, and this is definitely a derby, despite the fact that it's been more of a one-sided derby than actually is, because Atlanta have pretty much win every single game against Orlando City. Atlanta, of course, coming into this game with a 4-2-3 record, so despite the fact that people saying that Atlanta is off to just a horrible start, they're now actually above 500, which, obviously, if you win 4 out of your 5 games, that, of course, will help your case in terms of getting back to 500 and climbing all the way above the red line in the Eastern Conference. While for Orlando City, their record is 3-3-4. They lost to TFC 2-0. They have been very inconsistent this year in terms of their showing, but they've been consistently showing that they can, of course, create chances, but they cannot put them away. Injuries and suspension for Orlando, they're still pretty banged up. Obviously, Bello, Kratz, Ambrose, and Vasquez is out. And I forgot to mention that Ezequiel Barco is also out for this game because he is on international duty. He's with the Argentine U20 team and in the U20 World Cup. While for Orlando City, the only 2 guys that is going to be questionable is going to be Dijon and Eskew. But, when you look at this game, I have a feeling that Atlanta is going to win this one because it feels like Atlanta, they have finally got their mojo back and that they finally have started to get things going and kind of look like Atlanta again. I mean, I think the only thing that Atlanta might be missing from last season is that clinical finishing, because this season, although they're kind of creating a lot of chances and being kind of a fun team to watch, they can't put away those chances. It was the same case against TFC where, yes, they scored 2 goals, but it took them so long to eventually get that second goal, and they missed so many chances in that game against TFC. And they get a chance to play against an Orlando City team, which, like I said about Chicago, it's I don't know what this Orlando City will show. Is this going to be a good Orlando City team that's going to give Atlanta a run for their money, or is it going to be the Orlando City team that was from last game against TFC, where they were good in terms of creating chances, but they couldn't finish it, and also the defense was absolutely garbage in the last game. So we'll see which version of Orlando City will show up in this game. But finally, moving on into the final game of this weekend, and this is also a Sunday game, by the way, and also the one on the far end is also a Sunday game, is DC United versus Sporting KC. And I like to call this the IR derby because really, when you look at the injuries and suspension, boy, there is a bunch of injuries and suspension. Like, if there is 2 teams that have been suffer probably the most in terms of injuries and have caught the injury bug, it's definitely DC and Sporting KC. Obviously, for Sporting KC, they're winless in 5 league games and 7 overall in competition. Remember, they lost to Rayados twice in the CCL semifinal, and they lose to them in embarrassing fashion. Well, DC, of course, they finally won against Columbus 3-1 after kind of gone through a bit of a bad form. And, going to the injuries and suspension, yeah, this is probably going to take a while. But for DC, Orel Fisher is out. Odell Estem, out. Bustamante, out. Mora, out. Pines, out. And the only guy that is going to be questionable for DC is going to be Chris McCann, which is one of their defender. For Sporting KC, yeah, this is also going to take a while. Madrenda, out. Hurtado, out. Lindsay, out. Wallace, out. Espinoza, out. Beasler, out. Fernandez, out. And in terms of the only guy that is questionable, and since there was so much injury, I barely could fit everything on the board in this little square. But the only guy that is going to be questionable is going to be Fontes, which is also one of their most important player in that midfield. So, yeah, I mean, both of these teams are really banged up. And, you know, I think for Sporting KC, it's clear that they are just limping and can't wait until a couple of months later when they get most of these guys back, because they has just been absolutely decimated by injuries. Like they're started to even play players out of position just because they've been just so decimated by injuries, and it's have shown in the last couple of games where that injury toll has clearly took on this team. And I think, you know, for me, for Sporting KC, as much as they are in a bit of a trouble with how many injuries that they have, and they could be continued this really bad winless run, something tells me eventually they will pick it up. I think eventually when they get most of these guys that is going to be back in the starting 11, then yeah, most of these, when they get back into the starting 11, I think Sporting KC would be good again. But that being said, that means that my prediction of them finishing first has just even looked worse and worse by the day. But to my credit, I didn't know that Sporting KC was just going to get completely nuked this season in terms of injuries. I mean, this is just incredible how much injuries that they have on their team. Well, for DC United, you know, they have a chance to win this one against a very injured Sporting KC team. And also they're playing at home, which this season, Audi Field has definitely not treated them as good as they were last season. But like I said, they really want to start winning some of those home games so that they don't have to just always rely on their road form, which their road form this season has been excellent, but I don't know if it's going to last throughout the year. I have a feeling eventually their road form is going to take a bit of a dip. But that being said, that is pretty much it for all the preview for all these 12 games that's going to be happening this match week number 11. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these games? Which one do you think is the game that you have to watch? And as always, let me know in the comments below, what do you think the prediction for all 12 of these games? And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.